In mid-2002, a year after the start of the US-led invasion of Afghanistan, Operation Herrick commenced, which was to be the operational codename under which all British military operations in Afghanistan were to be conducted. 4 years later, in January of 2006, British Defence Secretary John Reid announced that a British task group would be deployed to Helmand province as part of the expansion of the NATO mission in Afghanistan, with the 16th Air Assault Brigade, who arrived in the country in April of that year, leading the first troop rotation. The 16th remained in theatre until October 2006, when it was replaced by the 3rd Commando Brigade, which had as its principal infantry units the Royal Marines of 4-2 and 4-5 Commandos, reinforced by the Scimitar light tanks of C Squadron, the Light Dragoons, in addition to supporting artillery, engineer, medical and logistical assets. 2 months into its deployment in December of 2006, the 3rd Commando Brigade launched the first of 5 offensives aimed at maintaining pressure on the Taliban over the winter months, which were to be collectively known as Operation Glacier. The planning for the second such offensive, known as Glacier Two, began on the 10th of January 2007, with the target being the Taliban-held position known as Jugroom Fort, which was being used as a staging area from which the Taliban launched attacks against both British and NATO forces. Preceded by an aerial and artillery bombardment, the plan called for 100 Royal Marines of Zulu Company 4-5 Commando to conduct an assault crossing over the River Helmand and a small canal using Viking armoured vehicles, whilst the Scimitar tanks of the Light Dragoons laid down suppressing fire. Once across the waterways, the Marines were then to disembark from the Vikings, storm into the fort, destroy any Taliban infrastructure in the area, before disengaging and returning to their forward operating base. Unfortunately, 3rd Commando Brigade had insufficient troops available in the theatre to hold the fort if it was taken, and as such, Operation Glacier Two was restricted to a large-scale raid. Beginning at midnight on the 14th of January 2007, the 105mm artillery guns of the 29th Commando Regiment Royal Artillery opened fire on Jugroom Fort. Then, as 0300 on the 15th, a US B-1 Lancer heavy bomber flew overhead and dropped 20 2,000-pound bombs onto the target area, with one creating a breach in the fort's outer perimeter wall. The conclusion of the preliminary bombardment was meant to act as the green light for Zulu Company to move off from their start line, but delays meant it would not be until 0630, as daylight began to break, that the ground assault got underway. Mounting up onto their Vikings, the Royal Marines began their attack, crossing first the River Helmand and later the canal, before disembarking from their vehicles on the open ground to the south of the fort. At the same time, the Scimitar light tanks of C Squadron, the Light Dragoons, opened up in the Taliban positions, which were enfilading the open ground with small arms, machine gun and RPG fire, resulting in 5 of the British troops becoming wounded. Despite this, the Royal Marines pressed on, with scattered groups reaching the hole that had been created in the outer wall by the B-1 bomber. From here, elements of Zulu Company stormed into the fort itself, where over the next 45 minutes, they fought against stiff Taliban resistance and directed Apache Helicopters onto the enemy strongpoints, until the decision was made to withdraw back across the river. After breaking contact with the enemy and reaching the west bank of the River Helmand, the senior officers conducted a head count to ensure everyone was accounted for, during which it was realised that a Marine, Lance Corporal Mathew Ford, was missing in action. Consequently, a Desert Hawk 3 surveillance drone was put into the sky to try and find the missing Marine, and it was not long before a heat signature was spotted, sat up against the outer wall of the fort, and identified to be the Lance Corporal. On receiving his location, Zulu Company organised a force of 4 Vikings and a dozen Royal Marines to go back across the river and recover their colleague, just as a Nimrod MR2, which had been providing overhead surveillance during the raid, reported that large concentrations of Taliban reinforcements were converging on the fort. Subsequently, the Apache Helicopters were tasked with providing air cover for the rescue. However, on being briefed on the mission, the air crews realised that they had insufficient fuel to remain over the target for the duration of the recovery, and instead Warrant Officer Mark Rutherford, the pilot of one of the Apaches, put forward an alternative plan to the commanding officer of Zulu Company. "Sir, I've got a different idea. We will land at your location, give me 4 men and I'll strap them to 2 Apaches. We will go over, land by the fort, strap the casualty to the base of my helicopter and come back. All you need to do is find 4 volunteers." After assessing his options, the commanding officer accepted this new plan and found 4 volunteers to carry it out, including Captain Dave Rigg, a Royal Engineer of the 28th Engineer Regiment, Marines Chris Fraser Perry and Gary Robertson, and Warrant Officer Class 1 Colin Hearn. Captain Dave Rigg later recalled his reaction to the task. It seemed an extraordinary, almost unbelievable plan. For one thing, I had no idea you could put passengers on an Apache. Where were they going to be? Hanging underneath it? Sitting on the side of it? No one knew at this stage how this would pan out. Regardless of these concerns, as Warrant Officer Class 1 Colin Hearn stated, there was no way we were going to leave him or anyone else on that battlefield. With the 4 volunteers briefed on their task, they grabbed their equipment, made their way over to the 2 Apaches, climbed on board and took off for Jugroom Fort, with an armed escort provided by a further 2 Apaches and 2 US A-10 Thunderbolt aircraft, whilst a US B-1 bomber carried out a second bomb run to suppress any Taliban resistance. Flying out just after 0930, the 4 Apaches made their approach to the fort, the escort helicopters, one of which was flown by Captain Charlotte Madison, the first female Apache pilot in the British Army, breaking off to provide fire support to the rescue mission. Simultaneously, the 2 rescue Apaches flew into the target area, with the first mistakenly landing inside the fort itself, whilst the second touched down on the correct LZ, enabling Captain Dave Rigg and Marine Chris Fraser Perry to disembark and move off to recover Lance Corporal Mathew Ford. Rushing over to the outer perimeter wall, Captain Rigg located the wounded Lance Corporal and began to drag him back to the helicopter, with Marine Fraser Perry coming to his assistance moments later. As they neared the Apache, the 2 pilots jumped out and helped strap the Lance Corporal to the aircraft, all the while under constant Taliban small arms fire, until the 4 re-embarked onto the helicopter and got into the air once again. Meanwhile, Warrant Officer Class 1 Colin Hearn and Marine Gary Robertson had become disorientated during the landing and, unknowingly, began heading towards the inner wall of the fort. Realising he had overrun the LZ, the pilot of the Apache leapt out and warned the 2 Marines that they were heading in the wrong direction, leading to the 3 moving off to the outer wall, from where they got eyes on Team 2 strapping Lance Corporal Ford to the second helicopter. With the mission completed, the 3 returned to their aircraft and got back into the air, linking up with the second helicopter and the 2 escorts, who over the course of the rescue had not only used their 30mm cannons, but had also expended all of their onboard missile and rocket ammunition in holding off Taliban counterattacks.
I think what they're doing now, I think the Apaches are landing. I think they're going to try and get the casualty out, or hopefully, I pray and hope he's still alive. They're just going to pick him up, get him out of there. Apache there still whacking 30mm down. I think what's going to be happening is one will be picking him up, one will be giving cover. You've got 2 Apaches that are giving air support. Come on, be alive. If he's alive, then it's top dollar. Apaches are off the deck. You see a big dust cloud forming now. So I should imagine that's them lifting off. Let's hope they've got the young lad. Okay, I can see one Apache coming through the cloud. He's away, and someone's hanging underneath. Good. Doesn't look good.
Sitting on one of the wings of the second Apache, Captain Dave Rigg recounted the return into Zulu's position. As we flew over the river, all the Zulu company were lined up on the west bank, waiting and hoping. It was a pretty solo moment for everyone. Seconds later, we landed and put Lance Corporal Ford on the ground. We then moved him to an awaiting CH-47 Chinook helicopter, which flew him back to Camp Bastion.